Hi, my name is Ilya Zlanik, advisor and partner with Vivaldi Capital Management and your host to Journeys to the Summit. Today we have Kyle Therriault joining me. Kyle and his father, Steve, are the co-founders of Auto Accessories Garage, an e-commerce business that sells all things auto accessories. It's a business they started in 2005 and sold in 2021 to GPC, which is a global, massive automotive conglomerate and part of the S&P 500. At the time of the sale, Steve decided to retire, and Kyle is still part of the overall business and leads the NAPA subsidiary of the business and their B2C consumer digital business. Kyle, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very excited to have you on and for you to share your story. You have an amazing entrepreneurial story from the beginning to the end, and even what you're doing now. And the father and son combination is something that resonates really well with me, considering I have two kids, and it's always been my dream to have at least one or both of them join my business when they get older. But obviously, you don't know how things turn out. And just a little bit of context about how we know each other. We've known each other for 4 years. You and your father have been great clients of Vivaldi. And we initially met right before you sold your business in 2021. One of my colleagues and a very close childhood friend of yours, Jeremy Bear, made the introduction. I actually remember this. We had our annual summer boat party, and me and Jeremy were talking, and he says, I have this great friend, Kyle, and his father. They're about to sell this amazing business. They're looking for advisors, and I think Vivaldi would be a great fit, and I think you'd be a good fit. He made the intro, and you guys have been great partners and great clients ever since. So thanks for that.
Yeah, shout out to Jer.
Things that I love about the wealth management business and being an advisor is how oftentimes a business relationship can evolve into a friendship, which ours has, which is awesome and a great part about the business. And let's start with this. Let's start with your dad first, Steve, and the initial vision that he had to build this business and in the e-commerce space, which was nascent and early on at the time, but also do it somewhat later in life. He was in his mid-50s, really very little, no entrepreneurial experience, had been working at a big business or a large corporation or a corporation for most of his career. What prompted him to take that entrepreneurial leap and take that risk at that time in his life?
Yeah, I think let's start there. Let's back up to my father, who is absolutely instrumental in this entire endeavor. He had 20 plus years experience in the automotive aftermarket, and primarily with who at the time was a large catalog retailer. So this is pre-internet. You get a catalog mailed to your house and it's full of all kinds of auto parts. And he was an executive there and primarily in charge of their merchandising. So the good thing about that is you have the relationships with all the manufacturers and the vendors, kind of first name basis. You know, they know each other very well. And private equity got involved, and they had a series of leadership changes, and he found himself without a job. And
How old was he at the time?
He was in his mid-50s.
Okay.
And thinking back on it, I think that's one of the biggest things that I really need to give an amazing amount of credit to is, like, he had a family to support. He had a lot more reasons to be risk adverse.
I mean, you were in college at the time.
I was a senior in college, yes.
And your younger brother was probably starting college,
senior in
maybe?
high school.
Okay,
yeah.
senior in high school, yeah.
You know,
There's a lot of big bills at that time.
Yeah, lots of bills. And I think also, like, in your, like, career arc, that's where you're starting to be risk averse. So, like, tremendous props to take that risk and say, you know what, I'm going to do something on my own.
So he gets laid off, he gets fired after this private equity transaction, a story I feel like you hear a lot of times.
Yep.
And yeah, he probably had an opportunity because he had so many connections to find his way into another corporation, but he decided to build something.
He decided to build something. So, at that time, the internet certainly existed, but like e-commerce and e-commerce automotive was very early days. So his first idea was to buy overstock auto parts. So things that haven't sold or have been returned, you could just buy like crates of this stuff
Okay.
and load it onto eBay
Mhm.
and see who bites, basically. And that was the first concept of what would become Auto Accessories Garage. So that business was called Overstock Garage, and he at the same time was trying to build a website.
Okay, so
So you wouldn't go ahead.
So he was buying the goods, or maybe that was the concept, and initially he was selling it through eBay,
Through eBay, yes.
and then he decided to go out and
Then
kind of
he-
start building his own.
Correct. Yeah, he started to think, well, I don't want to just be dependent on eBay. I don't want to
Yeah.
just be an eBay seller. Like, let's try to do something. So he hired a local web developer,
Okay.
web designer. I don't even know what you would call them at that point.
Yeah.
I guess we'll call him a developer. And showed me the first version of that site. And
While you were a senior in college,
I was a senior in college,
Studying-
right about ready.
studying music and
Studying music, performance, and business.
Okay, got it.
And I just knew, partly because I was excited of the opportunity, but partly because I also knew it could be much better.
Mhm.
I was like, I need to get involved. So, backing up a little bit, in middle school, high school, I was always into web design and, fumbling around with computers. Nothing major, but enough to be able to understand HTML and build websites for like high school groups and things like that. So this was like an opportunity to get into something that I had kind of abandoned in college, and I just dove in head first. And that was really the start, the inclination of what then became Auto Accessories Garage. So we had the wholesale overstock business that was Overstock Garage, and then this was the next iteration of the business.
Yeah, one thing that I want to highlight, just knowing you and your dad, is how complementary your personalities and skill sets are. And I also think that you probably can't say this about a lot of relationships, but your dad has this very laid back demeanor. It seems like he's very easy to work with, and like a good like combination between the two. So that must have been something that factored in early on.
Oh yeah, easily. I think in that he would deal with me.
Yeah.
I can sometimes maybe be a little overbearing, I'll
Yeah.
be honest. But yeah, we were, I mean, complementary in personalities, but complementary obviously in him having this, this enormous automotive experience and industry connections, and his trust and willingness to let his son
Mm-hmm.
start up the digital, technology side of that business. But it is funny to think back, like, at that era. Even you look back at like Amazon back
Mhm.
then, it was still pretty bare bones, like those like tabs across the top of the website, if you remember that. And just that, like, literally anyone that was eager enough to want to learn or want to try to put something out there could literally have like this reputable website,
Yeah.
and it's being run by, a father and son, and I'm what, 22 or something, and trying to, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what's interesting is you told me this while we were having the conversation recently, is, and I remember that, like, how early on that time was within the e-commerce internet era. Like, I can't even remember the first time I actually went on Amazon and tried and bought something from them. It was probably around that time, maybe even a little bit later, after I graduated
Yeah.
college. I graduated in 2006. I remember you saying that you were at these conferences, and you and your dad were trying to talk to distributors or manufacturers of these products and talking about the concept, and they would say stuff like, "Oh, nobody will ever buy accessories online."
Yeah. I I think that's actually probably that was the first challenge in this
Yeah.
business, right? So I vividly remember my father and I would go to the annual industry convention It's called the SEMA show.
Mm-hmm.
And I would lug around my laptop and my dad and I would go from vendor to vendor, open up the laptop, show them the website, and, pitch this novel idea of trying to sell automotive parts direct to consumer on the internet. And I would say year one, 90% of the vendors would say you can't do that. Like, no one's ever going to buy a brake pad on the internet. It's too hard. It's just not how things are done. And each year, slowly by slowly, someone would take the bait and allow us to, load the catalog onto our site and to prove that you could do it. And I think that was...
What was the risk to them at that time?
I think partly the risk was the automotive industry at that time. I'm not so sure this is true anymore, but for a very long time, they were always maybe a decade behind every other industry.
Mm-hmm.
Slow to adopt on the internet, slow to adopt with just other kinds of technologies. And I think it was partly they had their vendors and they had their supply chain and they had their way of doing things, either through, a big box store or through a catalog. And they didn't want to take that risk. I think the other challenge at the time was supply chain. And what we were trying to pitch was a direct-to-consumer dropship model.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the automotive sector, you can't just carry small, medium, large, right? You have to carry small, medium, large, and every year, make, model, submodel.
Yeah, how many SKUs do you guys have? Just to
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of SKUs.
Yeah. So to stock that is just
impossible,
right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that was kind of also the intersection of the idea of internet drop shipping. And I think in some ways we were doing that way before that became a huge, big buzzword where, then all of a sudden everyone's drop shipping. So it was convincing an old school industry to try to do this tactic and that it could be viable and that it could work. And that was definitely a big challenge early on.
In those moments when you face so many no's and people are telling you this is impossible, nobody's gonna do it, how were you thinking maybe they're right, or were you like, no, you had the vision, let's keep doing it until we gain traction?
I think we had the conviction that this would work. And I think because we had a couple early partners from my father's past relationships to say yes and to take that risk.
Yeah.
So we knew it worked with certain segments. It was just a frustration of like, how can we get these other guys to see the light and realize this is a viable segment. And I don't know, maybe I was also just kind of young and naive.
Yeah.
Like, it's just gonna work.
We'll
just keep doing it. Yeah. I mean, it's frustrated for sure. I think I was just like, these guys are idiots. Like, it's gonna take a while, but they'll come around.
I feel like that's the right entrepreneurial attitude.
Yeah.
They're wrong, I'm right.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So when did you realize that this was gonna be like a legitimate business? When did you start seeing that actual like consistent flow of customers coming to the site and ordering?
I think maybe inflection point 2 would be we had this standalone website. It was kind of like version 2.0, the one that I was more involved in. And it was actually attracting customers through Google, primarily through Google. And having a dozen or so transactions a day. And then we also still had the eBay business where we loaded those same parts and the same SKUs onto eBay. That had more traction at that time. Like eBay Motors was a big thing in the middle to late 2000s.
And that was the overstock business.
No, at that time, then the catalog parity kind of aligned.
Okay,
We just took the catalog and we put it on the website, and we took the catalog and we put it on eBay.
Okay.
And that, I think that inflection point was our first hire, and that was Michael Balk, who still works with me today.
Okay.
He was stolen away from my dad's past business. Sorry, the past company he worked for. And he was instrumental in setting up the catalog and putting together tactics and architecting the databases to load product. And that was where we could kind of just really ramp up the size of that catalog. And I think that also coincided with our first office.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, okay, this is like a real thing now.
Where was that first office?
The first office was, I mean, I can't even necessarily call it our office. We were sharing office space with an architecture firm. And but that felt real, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go from my dad's kitchen table and my little tiny apartment.
So you got yourself an apartment when you didn't go. You didn't
Yeah.
go straight
So I
back
guess
home.
I'm post college. This is probably 2 or 3 years into the business, right? It took a little while. We're kitchen table esque kind of thing into our first office.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got our first hire.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is a real business in my mind at that time.
Yeah, when you're hiring people, you can pay them.
Right. And we could maybe pay ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, we were paying Michael a lot more than we were paying ourselves.
Okay.
And we were cash flowing, and that felt amazing to be like, wow, we have a business that can pay ourselves a little bit, and we can have a little office. We invested in like a phone IVR system that's like, when you call a business and you press 1 for customer service.
Yeah.
Like that felt like the big leagues.
Yeah.
Like, wow, we've got 5 SIP trunks, so we can take 5 calls at the same time.
Okay.
Like that kind of stuff. And that always felt
who
kind
was
of fun.
taking those calls at the time?
I guess, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Like it may be like a year in, like a year from there, we hired part-time customer service agents.
Okay.
But also probably my dad was taking phone calls.
Yeah.
I would take phone calls.
Yeah.
Michael probably took phone calls.
Yeah.
It's double duty for everyone.
Yeah, when
right?
you're starting a business, everybody kind of wears a bunch of different hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even today, I still feel like I wear a lot of different hats.
So not taking customer service calls?
No, fortunately.
Yeah.
I would be a very bad customer service agent.
For the best. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about financing. How did that look? How did you finance this business in the beginning?
Yeah, that's another really good example of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, we just didn't have the experience or the knowledge or the exposure of like how to raise money or how to, pitch to investors, go to market. Like, nowadays with my experience with you guys and, with your cousin Pavel, like now I understand how that kind of stuff works. At the time, it was just like, well, okay, we're funding this ourselves, taking all the risk. We need some capital.
Yeah.
We need a revolving line of credit. I guess we go to the bank in our town.
Yeah.
So, we go to the bank, and that was similar to, you can't sell auto parts online.
Yeah.
The bankers they're so risk averse. They were just like, e-commerce, auto parts, father and son, like, what are you guys doing? No, we're not going to give you any money.
Yeah.
So that's another example. I remember like a binder putting together our business proposal and going and sitting behind the desk of this, guy who thought he was, a big shot in our little town, and him just being like, that's not a viable business. We're not going to give you money.
Yeah.
Like, get lost kind of thing.
So you bootstrapped it.
We did
in the beginning.
Yeah, but persistence paid off, and we finally did find a community bank that was willing to give us a line of credit.
Okay.
I think.
Do you remember how much they gave you?
Sorry.
Do you remember how much they gave you?
At the time, probably like $200K or something.
Okay.
But that was like the start of it, right? And as we could prove out further, and I think we probably even took. Yeah, I know we did. We took a second mortgage, or I forget the technical term, but putting on the house as like collateral.
Second mortgage, or a line of credit.
A collateral on that line of credit.
Yeah,
because the business didn't. What kind of assets did it have at that point?
Yeah.
So, but as the business proved out, and as we forged that relationship and showed the revenue and the cash flow, then that line of credit obviously increased. And that was, I think, the next infusion point of being able to say, okay, now we need to like hire some people. Like we can't do this all ourselves. The business is like chugging along enough that we can hire an accountant, we can hire a customer service manager, a merchandising manager, get a couple more people stolen away from my father's previous employer. I think they, at that point, they were still in existence, and they wrote a clause that like no one could leave anymore for Steve and Kyle. But yeah, I guess I'm hoping that's answering your question.
No, yeah, and then just thinking, you mentioned that early on, you had eBay, which was you were getting customers from there and revenue from there, but then you were also getting some flow from Google at that time, and that was directing customers to your website. Talk a little bit about that, because at that point, it was still somewhat early on in the Google days, and you could use Google to help propel your business. So how did you take advantage of that? How did that evolve over time?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't think the business could have existed, nor probably the majority of small to medium-sized e-commerce businesses for the 2000s, 2010s, further, like without Google. Google was the highway, right? Like it was the sole source
of leads,
for inbound traffic.
Yeah.
Like you can certainly capitalize on returning customers, and there's tactics to do that. At the time, it was such a fire hose of traffic. Like I don't even think we were doing a great job of trying to recapture.
You were getting that much inflow? Like you were getting more info that you could handle?
Pretty much, yeah. For our size, right? So Google Organic, that's the free links. That pretty much don't exist anymore, right? So that's, you search for something. Let's use an automotive example. Honda Civic floor mats.
Yeah.
Right. If you are in the first, second, or third of the free listings, the free organic listings at Google at the time, that is huge. That is like everything. That's your traffic. People would actually click on a couple links and compare the experiences. And all we had to do was basically be on page one, and we were going to get eyeballs and
lots of eyeballs.
Lots of eyeballs. And I like to think we were the best, but one of the best from a user experience standpoint, and that would convert. And then Google also started to introduce AdWords. So that's the paid component of Google, which is now basically everything of Google.
Yeah.
And we were one of the earlier adopters, advertisers on that platform. So that was us dabbling with that and learning, okay, are we willing to bid 10 cents a click? It was like literally that cheap at that time.
Oh, wow.
And managing that, but that was...
Nowadays, what is it, just out of curiosity?
Ooh, my marketing guys are gonna laugh at me if they watch this. It's probably like $2 a click,
like 200%
for like kind of a medium level query for auto parts. But like I don't know, for something like a lawyer or an investment advisor in Chicago, is probably like $10 plus.
Wow.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ecosystem was built around that. It was, how do you optimize your websites so when people search for terms of their vehicle plus product, that you show up and that you deliver a good experience.
So you guys were at the right place at the right time, very early on in the e-commerce business, specifically for the automotive space. So there weren't a lot of competitors, right?
There was a handful. There was one really good competitor that we also kind of liked to call our free consultants.
Okay.
We could copy a lot of their ideas, and I feel like they would copy some of ours. But there was
enough room for what?
There was just like 3 or 4.
Got it.
In the entire space.
That's not a lot.
No, that was nothing.
Especially when all of a sudden you've got access to Google. You're one of the first movers to Google.
Right.
Which is amazing. And you're able to get these leads at such an inexpensive amount. Like a lot of it was free.
Yeah, a lot of it was.
And some of it you were paying 10 cents a click.
Yeah, organic is free at the time. So 90% of your traffic is free. If I basically I just went to either the library or I went to some forum and I found this book called the SEO book, and I just like read it like the Bible.
SEO for Dummies.
I mean, it was before that even existed. Like
Yeah.
dummies hadn't even gotten onto this yet.
Yeah.
I think it was like the SEO book by like Aaron Wall.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure is what it was called. And it was just like, I have to learn this. Like, and I just devoured that thing and like read it 3 or 4 times and was like, all right, here is the game plan. Like, this is first of all what SEO is, and then this is how this works. And now we got to get these things called backlinks, which are links from other websites, and we have to optimize the content. And like, that was then the next inflection point of the site. Just like,
so you started getting, all of a sudden you had maybe some trickles, a few here and there, and then it started picking up, and then you're saying it just kind of,
yeah, like a rocket ship.
Wow. Okay. So at that point, obviously that you've solved one of the puzzles of building a great business, which is having people come and want to buy your product, and lots of people come. Obviously there's challenges with that.
Yep.
Right. And then all of a sudden you have to be able to provide great customer service. You have to make sure the website is efficient and works well. You have to make sure you have the product to get to them quickly.
Yeah. I mean, the website's starting to crash at that point.
Okay.
So that is where another instrumental employee, and I think that's another thing I want to have come across, is that yes, it's a father and son team company, but there's also a lot of other key players that are very influential in the success of the business, and who are also very loyal, and I still work with several of them today.
We're clearly loyal. I mean, 15 years later.
Yeah.
Or more than 20 years later.
Right. And they were absolutely instrumental in the success of the business. So, I mentioned Michael, but Matt Huckey is, and still is, the lead developer of the auto accessories garage platform. And I stole him away from, I guess I didn't make it clear earlier, I was working part-time across this business and a record label,
like very
in Chicago, very early on.
Yeah.
Several years prior to where we are right now. And I recognized his talent immediately and was like, come over here, come work with us. Like,
yeah.
And yet another example of like my dad and I being like, man, can we afford this guy? Like, how do we make this work? And then trying to get him involved, and he built version, we'll call it 3.0.
Yeah.
Because the website could not handle the traffic. It was crashing, it wasn't working. And it was just, it needed the next level to handle that. Same with the phone systems. Like I was talking about that, like first phone system, like it could only handle like 4 or 5 calls. So now we had to like go investigate, like what is a digital platform? How do we introduce that? Like that was another, we had then moved into a new office because we had a call center at that time, probably like 10 plus people. So we built out a little call center, and I remember like installing this Digium phone system and being so overwhelmed with that. It took us like all day, and then we finally got it work, and we're like celebrating, but like then thinking now we're like, wow, we're really in the big leagues. Like we can see the phone calls coming in on the screen, and we can like predict wait times and route people, and like that felt really cool. And I'm kind of rambling here to your
the question I asked was, well, you mentioned a few things. You have, all of a sudden you go from a trickle to a flood of customers. You're having issues with your website. You're telling me about some of the key players that you brought on to help improve that, the phone system, and then there's probably also like the actual product piece, right? And making sure those products that people are ordering, there's enough of them. And you can get them to them in a timely fashion.
Oh, for sure.
Because was there any time we were actually holding inventory, or was everything drop shipped?
We were holding inventory early on, and for probably 5 or so years of some of the key product. And at that point that became,
give me just an example of some things people love to order.
At that time, one of the primary things was it's called a tonneau cover. But for those that are not intimately involved in the automotive industry, it's a cover that goes over the bed of your pickup truck.
Got it.
And we were doing gangbusters with a certain product, and warehousing it, buying in bulk and warehousing it. And literally sometimes my dad would be on the forklift
Really?
taking these things down and loading them up for UPS to pick them up. But back to the depth of the automotive catalog for a business of our size, and I don't want to say it was like risk averse, but just it wasn't sustainable to try to inventory that deep of a catalog. It made way more sense to not carry the inventory risk.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it doesn't sell, then it's
You're holding the bag.
You're holding that. It's better to take a little less in margin and drop ship it and have infinite SKUs. Than to try to eke out another 5 points or whatever by stocking it. So I guess I forget what your initial the question was.
So it seems like at one point you were thinking maybe we'll hold some of this inventory, but you've decided at some point to kind of transition away from holding almost any inventory potentially.
Yeah, it wasn't the risk reward wasn't there.
Got it.
Nowadays I'm not so sure that would be true, but at the time
we need a certain level of scale,
right,
to make it work, right? Because you said there's like 100,000 SKUs.
Yeah, you're not going to stock. And you're going to stock one of each or something? Like, it's just, and it's hard to predict what vehicles are going to do well and what products are going to do well with a specific vehicle.
Were you guys paying yourselves a nice salary at that point? Or a livable salary?
We were paying a livable, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Or were you just reinvesting a ton into the business?
We were always reinvesting into the business. I would say even up until probably like the last couple years before the minority investment infusion, we were paying ourselves less than everyone else, and just reinvesting time and time again back into the business to keep it going.
I think that's amazing. I mean, it's worth talking about that for a moment, because you could have taken a different approach. You could have said, hey, we got a good business, we can make it a cash cow potentially. But instead, you said you wanted to reinvest, and your dad's clearly got expenses. He's got, well, you're out of college at that point. He had, maybe your brother.
Yeah,
your brother actually went to medical school.
He did. Yep.
So that's cool that you guys just were so laser focused on growing the business.
Yeah, and I think, setting the timeline straight. This is probably like 10 years into the business now.
Yeah.
So like I have expenses.
Yeah.
I got a life. He does too. But it's cash flowing.
Yeah.
We're paying ourselves well. We're not paying ourselves handsomely.
Yeah.
And I think, 2 or 3 of the top paid people on the payroll are not my father and I.
Yeah.
And that was because I think we had the conviction that the business was going to continue to grow and that there was a reward over here. We didn't need it right here at the time. And how important it was to have the right talent and to have the right investment in the technology to continue to let that business grow.
Yeah. But also in hindsight, and you probably maybe you knew about this at that point, especially within that industry, like if you're not growing, I feel like you're kind of like falling backwards, right? Because there's just so much competition coming along. Obviously, Amazon, like there's no way you could start a business like that today.
No way.
It's not possible.
I wouldn't advise it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that was what's kind of magical about that era was like literally anyone that wanted to, with enough savvy and determination, could start a business out of their basement.
Yeah.
And a lot of our competitors started that way. Some of them that also had successful exits, like started basically the same way. It was like, hey, I want to build an e-commerce thing. This is the hot new trend, and I'm choosing automotive as my market. Yeah. Whether there was experience there or just
without your father, obviously, that combo is what made it work. And be successful.
Of course.
One thing you mentioned Google. You said you made in 2014. You said something about Google Panda at one point. I don't know what that is, but talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so we, if you remember, we're talking about how important Google is to your business. And it's almost like, I'm trying to think, like the equivalent would be like, say you have this gas station on the highway, and that's the only way into the big town, right? And you're just getting all this consistent traffic. Yeah. and then all of a sudden they build a freeway 2 miles over, and all the traffic gets routed that way.
Yeah.
That is kind of how a Google algorithm can work. So the at the time, this is like funny to think back at this, but like, yeah, it was called the Panda update. I think it was named after one of the engineers at Google. His last name was Panda, I believe. That didn't stop them from having.
Sounds very cute and harmless.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I remember they had little like logos of pandas, and but the vicious panda.
Vicious, yeah.
And the algorithm was there to combat people that were like gaming Google results.
Okay.
And I think that one specifically, without boring you, was like people would just buy backlinks, and they would buy spammy website links to inflate their rankings. And this was to cut that down. We weren't doing that, but there was collateral damage in that. And basically overnight, we saw our organic free traffic get cut in half.
Wow.
And it was brutal.
Yeah.
And we immediately, there's no answers you can really get. So you're fumbling trying to figure out what's wrong. You're hoping for the next update for them to correct what you think is maybe just getting caught up in the algorithm. You're trying to hire consultants and try and figure things out. Ultimately, we had to lay, a fair amount of people in our call center off because we just didn't have the volume for them anymore. And we had to make some really difficult decisions and lay a few people off as well outside of the call center. And it took about a year for us to get that traffic back to
like your previous peak
of that previous organic peak. And like when you're growing like this to then fall down and then slowly kind of stagnant and get back to where you were a year ago, and you're expecting to be up here and your projections are up here. It's brutal. I think looking back, it did force us to get a little bit better at certain aspects of the business that maybe we're not being focused on. When you have this flood of traffic and you're just trying to keep up with orders and process the orders and get them out, and things are feeling so great, maybe you weren't managing certain aspects of the business as well as you could have. I think there was areas where we could improve margins, and we were not focused on that. And on the digital side, there was certain areas where like I wasn't focusing the team on like marketing our existing customers and doing a better job with email marketing at the time, and doing a better job with optimizing the site. So
because you were having so much organic flow, and you had all these other customers that you could have just focused on as well.
You're just focusing. Yeah, exactly. So it was a blessing and a curse, I think. So it allowed us to get a lot better at, okay, we can't control the Google variable. What can we control? We have this customer email database. Are we doing a great job with that?
Yeah.
Probably not as good as we can be. So like, let's figure out a better platform. Let's figure out a better tactic in that area. Are we, looking at every SKU and making sure that we are competitively priced? Are we overpriced? Are we underpriced? That kind of, you're either leaving money on the table by being underpriced, or you're not getting the sales because you're so overpriced. But when you had that flood of traffic, it didn't matter as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone was going to take the bite, right? So I think that was good. And it was also really good to, we were probably a little too complacent on that Google traffic. Like that was always going to be there.
Yeah.
So it helped to say, we don't need all of our eggs in that basket. We need to attract people through other ways. We need to do a better job in the paid search aspect and the email marketing, and
diversify.
Yeah.
So that's so key. That's one thing I've learned, is you always have to diversify, because you can't rely on one source, especially when it's not in your control.
Right.
Because sooner or later it's going to change. Just the dynamics of business change quickly.
It's just really hard when that is so much traffic and free.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It's almost too good to be true. It can't last forever. So I know one thing I talked about earlier is how you sold your business in 2021. You fully sold it. But let's back up a little bit, because you had kind of a partial infusion and strategic investor at some point. When did you decide that you wanted to search for somebody or partner to help you in the business?
So in 2017, one of our closer competitors, which was independently owned,
Mm-hmm.
they sold their business.
Okay.
And the investment banking group, the M&A advisory group, Peakstone here in
Okay.
Chicago, they were the advisors on that sale.
Okay.
And I don't know if that competitor gave Peakstone our information, or maybe they were just doing their due diligence and they were looking at who else was in that sector.
Yeah.
But they approached us. And at the time, we weren't necessarily all that interested in selling the business,
Mm-hmm.
but we knew that the market was hot. We knew that our competitor had just had a really nice exit.
Yeah.
And in talking with them, Steve Royko,
Yep.
who I really admire, he was the lead in that, and he was just very trustworthy, and we really liked him right off the bat. And he convinced us to say, you know, like, let's at least just go take a look at the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's hot right now. Like, let's see who's interested.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily
Yeah.
sell the business, but it doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cost you very little
Yeah.
to go
Check it around a
explore,
little
shop
bit.
it around a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was the private equity route,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty common. There was, you know, several larger competitors at the time. Some of the traditional businesses that went from catalog to internet,
Yeah.
that were maybe interested. And then there was Genuine Parts Company,
Mm-hmm.
which most people in the U.S. know as NAPA Auto Parts.
Yep.
And I remember being kind of like perplexed. I was like, what? Why would this enormous auto parts retailer be interested in an automotive accessories aftermarket
Yeah.
e-commerce business? Just didn't really make any sense to us. But in the initial discussions and talking with them, we came to understand that they, at the time, are a very successful traditional retailer of auto
Mhm.
parts, but they didn't have any exposure into accessories and aftermarket parts, and they were eager to, you know, explore and try to expand that segment. And they also were, I'm trying to think of the nice way to say this, they weren't very advanced in their internet and e-commerce
Well, to the point that
capabilities.
you were saying earlier, how a lot of these auto companies were 10 years behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're a large traditional auto parts retailer.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily you know, on top of the tech.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was an interesting proposition for us, and it was we'd like to take a minority stake in your business,
Yeah.
infuse you with cash. That cash cannot be used for your personal
Yeah.
consumption. It's to be put into the business. And in exchange, we're gonna have 2 people on your board as advisors, and you're going to, you know, we're gonna see how we can expose this catalog into our larger ecosystem, and also tech learnings from your business. So you guys are doing a great job. We've identified you as a leading retailer in auto. Like,
Mhm.
what can our team learn from you guys, and how can we collaborate and work together? So that was in 2017, and then there was some changes at GPC and NAPA, and then we partnered with a different group of people there who really saw the opportunity to expand accessories.
Mhm.
And I really, you know, I think we should give credit to Jamie Walton and Cameron Richardson at NAPA
Mhm.
for taking a risk and identifying that accessories could be, it's a hot market, it's got great profit margin, like that they could get into that. And also realizing the e-commerce capabilities and the talent on the team, And that is where, after about a 3.5-year relationship with that minority investment, we showed certain goalposts and certain milestones were hit. And that's when they said, we're going to take a swing and we're going to fully acquire you.
Okay.
And
So they came to you first, or how?
so in that minority, I guess I'm
probably.
skipping around a little bit. In that minority relationship, we had people on the board. We would check in quarterly to show our checkpoints.
Yeah.
We were showing the right kind of growth, but not rocket ship growth at that point. And that reminds me, we need to get to COVID.
Yeah.
But not rocket ship growth quite yet. But they started to understand the value in our talent and our technology, and that they didn't necessarily have as much of that, and they could leverage some of that technology and some of the learnings, particularly in what we were doing with marketing and user experience. And also, still, if you look at their catalog, they are replacement parts. NAPA is replacement parts. I need a new windshield wiper, or I need a brake pad. It's not, I need that truck bed accessory, or when you see those trucks on the road, they'd have all kinds of stuff going on. So it was, we want to get into that market. We could either build that ourselves, that'll take us forever, or we could buy it.
Yep.
And not only do we have a minority ownership in this business, they also have a tech platform that is quite interesting. So I think that made a lot of sense to them. But at the same time, that was probably a hard sell for them, because NAPA, they've got a giant acquisitions group and department, but they buy traditional businesses. They buy, a collection of auto part stores and fold it into the NAPA banner.
Yeah.
Or, they buy billion-dollar industrial parts businesses and bolt them onto their business. So to say, hey, we're going to acquire this family-owned small e-commerce business, I'm sure there was a lot of heads turned there.
Yeah.
And that took some convincing.
Yeah. But although, on the flip side, when you did have that exit, it was life-changing, meaningful for you. But for them, honestly, given the size, it was like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Given how big they are.
It was, a rounding error.
Exactly. It sounds like a good bet that they made. So we'll fast forward in a moment in terms of kind of what your experience has been like and all that. But talk a little bit about COVID, because you mentioned that was an interesting time.
So I think there was like 4 challenge/inflection points, and COVID would definitely be that 4th one. And really like a black swan event, right? Obviously a black swan event for the entire.
Yeah. Well, there was winners and losers.
Yeah.
And if you were e-commerce,
exactly,
you were a winner.
So, if you would have told me before it happened that there's going to be this, this virus that's going to change the world as we know it, in the immediacy, and your business is going to do great, I would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
same with my business.
Yeah. So COVID hits. It's really scary for a week or two with the business. We were actually probably some of the first to say, like, you know what, everyone grab your computers. We were all online with even the phone systems at that point, which was great. So grab your stuff, go work from home. Like, it is not worth all of us being in the same room right now.
Yeah.
And sales were terrible for a while. And then all of a sudden, no one has anywhere to go, and they have expendable income, and they have support from the government, and that was a huge leapfrog for e-commerce, and e-commerce automotive, right? Like, people are working in their garage on their cars, or they're adding things to their cars, and they can only now buy it online.
Yeah.
And it was tremendous growth for the business. And pretty wild. And then like hit some level, and then it's just like, that's the new normalcy. So I think at that time still, like, there was still a lot of people buying from traditional auto retailers. They were hesitant to go on the internet and try to put their year, make, model in.
Yeah.
Like, is this really going to work? And I'm a little afraid to install it myself, all that kind of stuff. COVID forced you to do that. And all of a sudden people are like, okay.
How easy it is. This is way easier.
This is better.
Yeah, way better.
So huge for the business and for the segment as a whole.
Yeah. It's amazing how, you look in hindsight and how things like, oh, this in a moment, this is a curse, turns out to be a blessing. Your dad losing his job, that could have been a curse, turned out to be a blessing. Yep. COVID, the panda issue with Google,
right?
Things like that. And I feel like every single entrepreneurial story has those types of,
like when you're forced to make a decision, right?
You're forced to make a decision, right?
Like it's easy to sometimes put that decision off, but when you are like, nope, here you go, buddy. You got to make it.
Yeah, your back's against the wall. That's what makes great stories. Well, so you went through that. You end up continuing to work with Peakstone to help finalize the deal.
I think so. Peakstone, I guess we glossed over that a little bit. Going to market, dealing with selling a business, we had no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And Peakstone was instrumental in the early education in the minority acquisition and learning how to position the business, package up something that adds value, how to...
well, initially in 2017, obviously you went to the broader market and you ended up doing a deal with GPC. On the second go around, did you also shop it around, or was it just we know we're going to go with GPC and that's it?
So yeah, GPC had the minority ownership at the time.
Yeah.
They had first right of refusal. We weren't trying to go to market.
Yeah.
They, we had built a business that was supplying accessories to the independent NAPA stores.
Okay.
And to NAPA company-owned stores. And that was really proving to be a viable segment.
Yeah.
So that was enough. I believe that was enough convincing to say, you know what, like, why do we own a minority part of this? And then they're profiting off of our own stores. Like, let's just buy them.
Oh, for them. Yeah. And
it'll be a win-win.
Yep.
And we'll also be able to leverage that technology and continue to grow the accessories segment. So, yeah, they approached us with their kind of first offer. And that's when my father and I immediately went right back to Steve Royko.
Yeah.
And he proved his value again and really helped us with that final placing value on the business, placing value on an emerging business insider there that was helping NAPA. And then also, I think one of the challenges for them was placing value on IP. Right? They're used to buying, back to what we said earlier, they're used to buying traditional businesses that follow the same model. Now they're being forced to put value on proprietary software and a lot of technologies and things that that they would have just used with a third-party vendor or something.
Yeah.
So that was a learning experience for us on how to package that up and to show the value of software and to show the value of team and talent as well.
At that point, was there any hesitancy on selling the whole business and kind of giving up your baby, or was it like, oh wow, this is a big deal, that's a lot of money?
The initial selling to the minority was for this final acquisition, right?
Yeah.
It was, how do we prove that we can add value to NAPA?
Yeah.
How can NAPA feel trusting of us, and how can we then have them acquire the rest of the business?
Okay.
They had done that with a couple other busices.
All right. So that mindset was there back in 2017.
Yeah, it was. And it was just, at some point, either they needed to acquire us or let us go.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
But we were providing enough value to into their stores that it would be silly for them to let that go. And you're back to your original question. It was twofold. Certainly, yes, huge liquidity event
Mm-hmm.
for my father and I, life-changing,
Mm-hmm.
and also an opportunity for my father to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me and my father, an opportunity to take the business kind of to the next level by
Yeah.
having the backing of a Fortune 200 organization and the opportunity for all of the employees of our business at the time to have a greater opportunity for a career advancement.
Yeah.
Right? There's only so
much you could do.
so much we can do with a 50-person family-owned business,
And you're risking everything,
right?
because you're like, that was like at that point it was getting so competitive within the space, and Google was probably more difficult.
I think, and I still believe this to this day, is like we had to partner up with someone, and in a lot of ways, the NAPA ecosystem, it's close to 6,000 stores.
Yeah.
There's more opportunity selling to those stores and to those independent owners within that ecosystem, and there's way more opportunity.
Just like a franchise model.
Yeah, they have a portion of corporate-owned stores, and they have a portion of independent. And there's actually more independent than corporate.
Got it.
So selling to those guys, we built systems where if you go into a NAPA store and you want an accessory, you can buy it in the store on the computer. It actually flows into our system, and we supply it back to the store.
Got it.
We also took the Auto Accessories Garage website and through some really novel technologies and solutions, bolted that into the NAPA website. So if you want to buy accessories, you can buy it both on Auto Accessories Garage independently, and you can buy it on NAPA, NAPA's website. So those kinds of value adds are way more opportunity than a race to the bottom, paying Google
Yeah.
to then try to compete against Amazon.
Yeah.
Who is ruthless in this. They will sell stuff at a loss and just bleed you out.
Yeah.
You know, the diapers.com story, I'm sure.
Of course.
So and Google, they've got to show growth. So what do? They just make it more expensive to buy ads, and they remove your organic listings. So those organic listings we talked about are like basically non-existent these days. So we had to really take a hard look and say, like, you know, we're coming out of the tail of COVID. Business is as strong as it's going to be right now. We could remain on our own and potentially die a slow death, or probably have to pivot in a meaningful way. I'm sure we would have pivoted to something, but or we could join NAPA.
And valuations at that time, and still
valuations were great.
They still are, but I mean, we're talking about good timing overall.
But I think the story's not just, hey, we sold the business and exited and rah, rah, rah. It's that we found a way to add even more value to that business and to the acquirer, and
for your employees,
and for the employees. And a lot of them are doing great things at NAPA or at Auto Accessories Garage within NAPA. There's way more, career opportunities for them to grow that we couldn't provide anymore. I didn't feel like we could really provide. And it also it allowed my father to retire.
Absolutely. And I think he's enjoying retirement.
He's doing a great job in retirement. Yeah.
Time I talked to him, he's very happy and loves the warm weather in Arizona. One last question, and we could cap it off here, is now that you've been in this business for 20 plus years, and obviously that world's changed, technology's changed. Now we got AI, a whole new element. How do you view the business that you're in moving forward from a tech perspective, from an AI perspective? Where do you see it going?
In our business specifically, and I would call it like kind of a commodity business, particularly, in the area that I work in NAPA now, under NAPA's digital business. I think agentic commerce is coming fast. And that is, there's always going to be joy in shopping. Yeah. But when you need commodities and you need just to replace things, that's a chore. Yeah. And the way things are moving, you're not going to search on the web anymore. You're not going to go to Amazon and search, stainless steel L bracket. Okay. You're going to just type or you're going to talk to your phone, you're going to say, get me a bracket for that container in the kitchen. And it's going to know what that is.
Yeah.
And it's going to go out and it's going to find it. It's going to purchase it because you're going to have your payments saved with
The agent or
with your phone, but that device is going to have a protocol with all. Then Google's actually working on this. It's called like universal. Oh man, there's a universal protocol that they've implemented that will be the new standard, and things are just gonna arrive for you. So think of the power of like in the automotive space. Hey, I need a new air filter for my blue car.
Yeah.
The AI is going to know the blue car is your blue 2025 Honda Civic EX.
Yeah.
And it takes this kind of thing and it's going to look at all the retailers. It's going to see who can do it the fastest, the cheapest, or it's going to know your preferences. And the web and e-commerce and like searching and trying to figure that kind of stuff out and read customer reviews. And
oh my God, that sounds amazing.
That's, I would say, probably in the next couple of years.
I feel like I spend at least a couple hours every weekend. You know, I have a list of all the things I feel like I need to buy that need to be replaced, and I aggregate that list throughout the week, and then I spend like a couple hours or maybe an hour or two on a weekend trying to figure out what to buy, and if it's something new, I have to do research on it. Okay, I like that future.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting. I think we're in an interesting time with that because it's kind of first adoption inflection point, just like it was when it was like you have to optimize your SEO. So I think some of the retailers are going to figure out how to do this the fastest. That feedback loop for Claude, for OpenAI, for whatever Siri starts to become, like that will feed that loop, and then it'll start to say, okay, like this is the retailer that has this part, and this is that. So I think it's really important, but it's also going to make our lives a lot easier for a lot of the mundane stuff.
All right, well, that to me sounds
that's my
exciting. Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining. Again, great story. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope I got everything right. I'm sure.
Oh, I thought the story was fascinating.
Okay.
Let's grab some lunch.
You say so. Let's grab some lunch.
Yeah.